I now invite His Excellency Mr. Walid Al-Muallem, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Syrian Arab Republic and head of the Syrian government delegation, to make a statement. You have the floor, Mr. Minister.
Ladies and gentlemen, I greet you on behalf of the Syrian Arab Republic, a civilian republic that some of those in this room have tried to take back to Middle Ages. Arab, proud to be Arab, and that in spite of what some of the Arabs did, though they were supposed to be brothers. Syrian, because it takes root in history for the past 7,000 years. I have never stood a stance that is more difficult than that of today. Today, and the Syrian delegation bears the suffering of my country for the past 3 years. I bear the blood of martyrs, the tears of mothers, the bitter waiting of the families of those kidnapped or disappeared, the cry of every frightened child at hearing a shell during his lesson, the hopes of a whole generation that is seeing its dreams collapse, the courage of every father, every mother that has sent their children to protect the country, every family that has become displaced or refugee. I bear today also the hopes of the Syrian people for the coming years, the right of every child to go safely to his school, and every woman to leave her house without being afraid of being kidnapped or killed or raped, the hope of every young man to build his future and to return home safely to his children and his wife. Today is the moment of truth. It is a truth that some tried to make slip away in a systematic manner through campaigns of disinformation, of fabrication of information, of lies, killing and terror. It's a truth that has been revealed before all, and that by us being here, the delegation of the Syrian Arab Republic, representative of the people, the government, the state, the institution, the army, and President Bashar al-Assad. It is regrettable, yes, it is regrettable to me and to the people of Syria that representatives of states in this room are sitting with us today while the Syrian blood is on their hands. Countries that have exported terrorism and exported instruments of pardon as if God delegated to them the right of sending a person to heaven and another to hell. They have prohibited worshippers from going to the houses of God. They have encouraged and financed terrorism. They have not looked at their own glass houses before throwing stones at ancient castles. They have started with no shame to give us lessons in democracy, in development, while they live in backwardness. They have given prizes here and there. They have decided what is right and wrong because they are used to having countries that are the property of a king or of an emir, and that does what he wishes. They have preached to Syria, the elegant, pure, independent lady. They have preached Syria with honor while they soak in mud, they soak in backwardness. And now the mask has fell, and we can see the real face of what they want. That is, destabilize Syria, destroy Syria, and that through exporting terrorism. They have used their petrodollars to buy weapons and to use mercenaries and to flood international media with lies, and that to hide their barbaric behavior, and that under the slogan of the Syrian revolution responding to the aspirations of the Syrian people. Ladies and gentlemen, how can a terrorist, be he Chechen, Afghan, Saudi, Turkish, French, or British, how can he respond to the aspirations of the Syrian people? And with what? With an Islamic State that has nothing to do with Islam, except what they know of their devious Wahhabi beliefs. Who told you that Syria wants to go back 1,000 years? In Syria, we see pregnant women being killed, their fetuses being killed, women being raped before and after death. And that only shows the thoughts of those who export this kind of thinking. In Syria, ladies and gentlemen, fathers are being killed before the eyes of their children. And what is worse is that the children of strangers who want to respond to our aspirations are dancing before that. In Syria, this is what is happening, which is totally absurd. Under what is called the Great Syrian Revolution, civilians are being killed, elderly, women and children. Streets are being bombed, and the victims of such bombings are not asked about their political or religious thinking. We see libraries being burned. We see graves being unearthed. Under the slogan of revolution, children are killed in their schools, people in their universities, women, and that are being killed. And that through all kinds of slogans such as sexual jihad, even incest. We see mosques being bombed. We have people who have been decapitated, their heads hung in the streets. We have seen people burnt alive on the streets, and this will be denounced by history. However, nobody will be accused of being anti-Semitic. Under the name of a revolution, we see a father that is killing himself and his family so he would save them from strangers entering his house. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, and most of you here are fathers of children. Imagine the feeling of a father when he has to kill his own family with his own hand to protect them from monsters that take the form of people and pretend that they are fighting for freedom. This is what happened in Adra. Adra, I think nobody of you have heard of it. Strangers came in. They killed and burnt people. You have not heard anything about it, but probably you've heard about other places where the same thing happened as happened in Adra. And they have accused the state and the Syrian army. However, when no one could believe this lie anymore, they stopped saying anything about it. This is what is being done by states who are the first attackers on Syria, after they put aside others who were trying to take the leadership of the country through influence and money, and this by using the horrible Wahhabi thought that is being spread in Syria. From this rostrum, I tell you, you know, as I know, that it will not stop in Syria. But some in this room does not want to understand that. Everything I have said, ladies and gentlemen, would never have happened had the neighbor been there in time of need. Nevertheless, the neighbors of Syria were either backstabbing it, or they were just standing silent, or very weak, being given orders, and that for plans that some have put for years in order to destroy Syria. All of this would not have happened had it not been for the government of Erdogan. This government that allowed terrorism in its land, arming them and training them to reach Syria. And they did not know that magic will turn against the magician one day. And today they see that terrorism has no religion. And from problems with neighbors, we see the problems in foreign policy, international diplomacy, and everything else. Nevertheless, this government has continued these actions because of assuming that their historic dream would be realized. They put corruption everywhere, from Tunisia to Libya to Egypt to Syria, and that in order to implement a dream that's only in their sick minds, they insist to continue. And this can only be described as stupidity. Who does not learn from history shall lose the present. History says your neighbor's house cannot burn while your house is absolutely safe. Nevertheless, some neighbors have lit the fires in Syria and have brought terrorists from all parts of the world. And here we see the horrible, tragic irony. 83 nationalities are fighting in Syria, and nobody condemned that, and nobody changed his position, and they continue calling it the noble Syrian revolution. And while just scores of men who were fighting with the army in some areas, this led to a whole movement and to calling it external interference, and they asked for foreign forces to leave and to preserve the Syrian sovereignty. In this context, I reiterate that Syria, the independent state, shall do all that is necessary to defend itself as it deems appropriate, and that without listening to all the cries, the statements, and the positions that have been announced by many. Such are pure Syrian decisions. In spite of all that, the Syrian people is steadfast until we have seen sanctions against the people, against the bread of the people, the milk of the children. And at the same time, we have seen factories, food and medication factories that have been burnt. We have seen the destruction of railroads and main electric infrastructure, even places of worship, be they Christian or Muslim, they were also targeted. And even the United States threatened to an aggression against Syria, and they fabricated the information with those with whom they have certain interests, and that under the story of the use of chemical weapons. However, their people were not convinced, nor were we. Nevertheless, the people of democracy, freedom, and human rights, unfortunately, only speak the language of blood, of war, of colonization and hegemony. Democracy is being imposed by fire, and freedom through aircraft. It is considering that it has the last word. They have forgotten, or pretend to forget, that who did suicide operations in New York was the same as him doing so in Syria. They have forgotten that terrorism was yesterday in the United States. Today it is in Syria. As for tomorrow, nobody knows. But what is sure is it shall not stop here. Afghanistan was a good example for those who wish to understand. Most of them do not wish to understand, nor the United States, nor some civilized Western countries who they have all tasted the bitterness of terror. Suddenly, they became the friends of Syria. Four of them totalitarian regimes that know nothing of democracy and kingdoms. Some were colonizers of Syria. They have divided the country for over 100 years, and now they are holding conferences in order to enhance their friendship with the Syrian people. They are putting the people under siege, imposing sanctions, and supporting terrorism in Syria secretly, while speaking of the horrible humanitarian situation. If you really feel concerned about the humanitarian situation in Syria, then let us be. Stop supporting the weapons and the terrorists, stop the sanctions and the siege, and go back to the policy of reason. Then we tell you that we will be just fine.
We may wonder, is everything that is happening in Syria merely the deed of external forces? No, ladies and gentlemen. The Syrians here in this very hall have contributed to all that I have previously mentioned. They executed, facilitated, legitimized these acts at the expense of the Syrian people, which they claim to represent. They were divided amongst themselves many times over. Their local leaders also sought refuge outside. They sold themselves to Israel. They were the eye of Israel that sees and the hand of Israel that destroys. And when they failed, Israel intervened on their behalf to spare them the attacks of the Syrian Arab army and to help were doing Israel's bidding. Our people was being slaughtered while they were put up in five-star hotels. They opposed outside Syria. They betrayed Syria outside Syria. They sold themselves to the highest bidder. They pretend to speak for the Syrian people. No, ladies and gentlemen, whoever wants to speak for the Syrian people must not be a traitor. He must not be an agent of its enemy. Whoever wants to speak for the Syrian people must come to Syria, live in Syria, see what is happening, say goodbye to his children before they leave for school, as they will not, as maybe they will not come back due to the shelling by outside forces. They must bear the ice cold because we have been deprived of fuel. They must stand in long queues to buy bread because we have been deprived of wheat, although we were previously exporters. Whoever wants to speak for the Syrian people must stand steadfast under terrorism, resist terrorism, fight terrorism, and then he can say he is speaking for the Syrian people. The Syrian Arab Republic, ladies and gentlemen, the state and the people has met all the demands made on us. We have opened our doors to journalists who have reported reality to you, a reality which was unbearable for the Western media because it did not correspond to what they wanted to see in Syria. And there are countless examples that I shall not list. We have allowed humanitarian organizations access. However, the tools of certain people who are present here have prevented them from having access by shooting at them. we were carrying out our duty as a state. We provided them with protection and facilities, and we have also released many detainees and armed people, which has caused the anger of certain Syrians inside. However, they understood that Syria was valuable and that we must forgive all those who have trespassed against us. What have you done, you who claim that you are speaking for the Syrian people? Where is your vision for this great country? Where are your ideas? Where is your political program? What are the tools for change on the ground, except for the armed terrorist groups? I am quite sure that you have nothing. And this is clear to those who are near and to those who are far, especially in the regions which have been occupied by your mercenaries, or what you call the regions that you have freed. Have you really brought freedom to these regions? Have you not abducted their moderation by your repressive practices? Did you build health centers? Did you build schools? Did you not destroy hospitals? Did you not allow polio to spread, to come back to Syria after Syria was polio-free? Did you really preserve and protect our archaeological sites and museums? Did you not loot these historical sites? Did you not trade in artifacts? Did you show your commitment to justice and human rights? Did you not decapitate people and publicly execute them? You did nothing at all. You only brought shame to Syria by begging the United States of America to launch a military attack against Syria. Even the opposition that you claim to lead, the opposition repudiates you, rejects you. The people of Syria want a Syria that is one single unit, and I'm not referring here to the various religious communities or racial communities. For you, those who do not agree with you are infidels. They killed the Muslims regardless of their denominations. They killed the Christians. Even the nuns were not spared. They were abducted after attacking Ma'lula, the last town in which the language of Christ is still spoken, in order to force the Christians in Syria to leave, but they failed. We are all Christians when Christianity is attacked. We are all Muslims when mosques are attacked. We are all Syrians from Raqqa, Latakia, Suwaida, Homs, Halab, when these towns are attacked.
Can you just wrap up? Because you have spoken only 20 minutes, longer than 20 minutes.
Mr. Secretary, you spoke 25 minutes.
Yeah, I know you have.
I came here after 12 hours in the aeroplane.
Yeah, I know you have a lot to speak.
Few minutes to end my speech. Yeah. This is Syria.
How much do you have left now?
I think 5-10 minutes.
Oh, no, it's not true. It's not. Can you just, I will give you another, opportunity.
No, I
at
can't
the end,
divide my speech. I must continue.
You have already spoken.
I'll do my best to be.
Can you just wrap up in just 1 or 2 minutes?
No, I can't promise you. I must finish my speech.
Then I will have to give equal time to the opposition group. So
yourself, you live in New York, I live in Syria. I have the right to give the Syrian version here in this forum.
Yes, of course, I do not
After 3 years of suffering, this is my right.
This, we have to have some constructive and harmonious dialogue. Please refrain from any inflammatory remarks and accusing some member state participating here, so which will not be constructive at this time.
It is constructive. I promise you to be constructive. Let me finish my speech.
but within the 2 or 3 minutes, please.
Okay.
2 or 3 minutes, and I will give you another opportunity, okay?
Another 20 minutes, no? باختصار أيها السادة
Then your glorious revolution did not leave one single evil deed on earth that it did not do. In front of this gloomy picture, the light could be seen at the end of the tunnel. The Syrian people resisted. The Syrian army insisted on protecting the citizens. The state remained cohesive. And certain friendly countries stood by us and stood by the side of right. States such as Russia, to which I address here and to which I thank on behalf of the state of Syria and the Syrian people. China, which stood by the sovereignty and freedom of Syria. Russia was a sincere friend in all international fora, upholding United Nations principles, sovereignty of states and human rights in theory and in practice. China, the BRICS countries, Iran, Iraq, Arab and Islamic countries, including certain African countries and Latin American countries who stood by us sincerely and protecting the aspirations of the Syrian people and not supporting the agendas of other countries. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Syrian people aspires to more freedom, justice and human rights, aspires to more pluralism, more democracy, aspires to a better Syria, a safe Syria, a flourishing Syria, a healthy Syria, a Syria with strong institutions, not the destruction of institutions, a Syria where archaeological sites are protected and not demolished. We aspire to a strong national army which defends land and honor, defends its borders and defends its sovereignty, not to a free mercenary army, to abduction of civilians and swapping them for money and turning them into human shields and looting and blackmailing the poor, and a free mercenary army that trades in human organs and eats livers and hearts and burns human heads and rapes women and recruit children with the use of force and weapons that are sent by countries that are here today, which claim that they are supporting moderate groups. But where is this moderation? Where are these moderate elements that are hiding behind ambiguous names, especially those who have come to light recently and that are supported militarily under new names? They are all turncoats. They are carrying out terrorist attacks, although they claim that they are fighting terrorism. The media are now lauding these people, these terrorists, by claiming that they are moderate. However, they know full well that they are extremists and terrorists, although they have different names. They also know, as we know, that they are sending weapons to Al-Qaeda and its branches in Syria and in the region. This is the real truth. Wake up. The West is supporting and some Arabs are executing in order for the killing machine to reach the hands of Al-Qaeda. The West claims to fight terrorism. However, secretly it feeds terrorism, and those who do not see the truth are blind. or do not want to see? Is this the Syria that you want after the fall of thousands of martyrs, after the spread of insecurity and destruction? And are these the aspirations of the Syrian people that you claim to achieve? No. Syria will not remain this. We have come here in order to save Syria, to put an end to the piercing of the bellies of pregnant women and to decapitation. We have come to protect the civil state, to put an end to barbarism. We have come here in order to prevent the collapse of the Middle East. We have come here to protect the cradle of civilizations and religions. We have come here to protect the Christians of the East. We have come here to say to the Syrians outside, come back to your country. Do not remain strangers. And our brother Syrians, no matter what tragedy, we have come here to put an end to terrorism and to its bitter consequences. Dialogue between the Syrians is the solution. However, we have tried to defend our people, and this is our constitutional duty. And I say to you here that we will continue to fight terrorism, which has harmed all Syrians, regardless of their political aspirations. We have come here to put the international community before its responsibilities. As long as certain countries support terrorism, and these countries are well known to you, the conference will not succeed. Diplomacy and terrorism cannot go in parallel. Diplomacy must succeed by fighting terrorism. We have come here as representatives of the people and the state. Yes, but no one No one, Mr. Kerry, in the world has the right to give legitimacy or to withdraw legitimacy from a president, a government, a constitution, or a law, or anything in Syria but Syrians. This is the right of the Syrian people, and it is their constitutional duty. What will be agreed upon here, no matter what it is, will be subject to a popular referendum. We are mandated here to transmit to you the will of the people and not to determine their fate. And those who listen to the Syrians will not claim that they speak on their behalf. The Syrian people is the one that has the right to determine its fate and to decide on who governs them and the constitution. And I shall conclude in 1 minute.
Left. Okay.
Finally, I would like to address to you all and to the world at large, all those who are watching us here in Syria. We are fighting terrorism, which has destroyed a great deal. Terrorism, which Syria since the 80s has been calling to stop and to put an end to by establishing a united front. No one heeded our call. France, the USA, Britain, Russia, Iraq, and Afghanistan have all witnessed this terrorism. It is now extending, reaching everywhere. We must all stand together to fight terrorism and to put an end to its dark claws. We as Syrians will stand as one, and we will work for our beloved Syria. We shall rebuild Syria. We shall rebuild the Syrian people. Dialogue is the foundation, and although we thank the hosting country, however, the dialogue between Syrians really must take place on Syrian land. A year ago,
I will summarize.
Thank you.
I will finish one sentence.
One sentence, okay. Thank you.
I will summarize.
Thank you.
I will finish one sentence.
One sentence, okay. Just to keep your promise, one sentence. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Syria always keeps its promise. إما أن يستمر.
Some may continue to support terrorism in Syria, and that is up to you to decide. Or we decide to fight terrorism and to fight the hypocrites who smile at you and feed terrorism behind your back in order to attack Syria and harm Syria. However, this terrorism will burn everywhere, and this is reality, Mr. Secretary. We must be aware of that. Thank you.